Tom Jones, I'll Never Fall in Love Again. Definitely a choice.
And it looks like I'm never gonna fall in love again. Fall in love. No, I'm never gonna fall.
No one sings like this anymore. This is like one of the most rich, colorful baritone sounds. And there's this style, there's no compromise on the timbre. There's no pinching, there's no breathiness in the sound. It's just the full voice. It's a very operatic, so to speak, technique that he's employing to involve all of the overtones, all of the richness, to not cut off any of the sound coming through. This is really, really nice. This is cool. Let's make this a little bigger. That's better. It's really well recorded too.
Just broke down and cried, and it looks like I'm never gonna fall in love again.
I love that wide open belt, man. But also, you know, when the full voice is being used, and here's something, if you want to like start talking about the singers you listen to in a little more aware way, you know, understanding the technique, some kind of logical fallacies that come into play when it comes to singing is you'll hear someone, you'll say, wow, they sing with so much volume and color and power, they must not be able to sing soft. It's actually the opposite. The voice doesn't work like placed at like a very loud place. It can't go soft. It plays in a very soft place. It can't go loud. The voice, as it is more flexible, more technically proficient, a singer, it's like the dynamic range will grow. You know, an unproficient singer will only be able to sing in one timbre, but a more proficient singer will be able to always sing softer and louder than a less proficient singer. So, you know, at the very beginning, a voice can maybe just stuck in a very soft place. But if you can emote with any flexibility, that's kind of the measure of a singer's technical ability. And so even when Tom Jones is going up to this huge, open, beautiful, colorful, baritonal belt here, it's a very operatic sound. It's applying the operatic technique to popular vocalism or popular style. That's a lot of singers from the 50s and 60s would do that. You even hear about instances of someone like Frank Sinatra talking with like Corelli or any other famous opera singers of the same era, and they would compare notes about technique. They would talk about what they would do to get through certain phrases. Tom Jones is definitely part of that generation. You know, the technique at the time was very consistently approached, probably because recording technology was pretty, you know, basic, and it was not actually conceived as a supplement or replacement for live performance. You know, the live performance was always prioritized. So here they're recording what worked in a live environment so that it could be reproduced elsewhere, not necessarily making a recording for something to only be consumed as a standalone recording, which is just a really cool phenomenon in history when it comes to like music production, music recording, and how music is dispersed amongst people. But listen to how sensitive he can really get while maintaining that color.
I'm never gonna fall
So soft, but still so full.
again. Baby, I broke up all inside, and it looks like I'm never gonna fall in love again. That's why I'm singing.
Oh, yes. Yeah, this is 1967. And I can see now how that reaction that you said, G. Calotta, is that a lot of people would throw their panties at him. I get it. It's a really interesting, if you look at pop music in general, as over the last like 50 to 70 years, it's really interesting to see how they depicted traditional gender roles in music, basically like masculinity and femininity in music. Masculinity as it was in the 60s, as depicted in popular music like this, was a lot more outward. It was a lot more outspoken. It was a lot more, you have these big warm voices proclaiming those like very sensitive feelings. And now if you hear someone singing a song like this, it's all about very, very quiet and very, sensitive and whispery and soft and that kind of thing. You didn't have that. It was this big outpouring. It was a very, what you would think typically, traditionally, stereotypically, like a very Italianate emotional outpouring, very operatic, very over the top in all music for the most part. Yeah. Definitely. I think less dynamic is a really good way of putting it, Mike. Like, in the same way that this technique is one that's facilitated through like a full body singing standpoint. You don't really get that. I mean, this technique evolved into modern rock and roll. As at the time, rock and roll was developing, but this is so similar to how singers were approaching rock and roll, which split off then into rock, hard rock, heavy metal, and all those different genres that we know now. And the opposite end of it went into like pop music, more softer, more compressed, more less dynamic singing for sure. But that's also because that worked better with the popular capitalization of music. You can draw so many historical impacts to the way that singers were producing sound in certain periods of time. And this is a really cool anecdote of such a really powerful performance to us now in 2022 from, over 50 years ago. Well, I would say, I mean, he has a lot of dynamics. You just don't think that way because he's so loud. We're used to hearing pseudo one-dimensional singers who kind of stick within one dynamic range. But he's able to pull it back, and we'll isolate some moments like that. Totally. I get what you're saying, yeah. with less recording dynamics, right? So the microphone is kind of giving us this one single color, but what he's actually doing as a singer, you know, like I was just saying, like this is not to supplement, this is not to replace a live performance as a form of a recording. This is taking a live performance and dispersing it, trying its best with the technology available to disperse the impact of a live performance. It's all good, Mike. I mean, I would say this style translates mostly to contemporary musical theater, or at least, at the very least, like classical musical theater. But he has, you don't find such rich baritone voices doing a lot of stuff in contemporary musical theater. They like a more tenorial, more youthful sound. But, you know, this kind of voice translates probably the best to some of those great power rock tenors that we talk about all the time. That was the evolution of this kind of singing. The crooner, you know, the technique of that 60s crooner, late 50s, mid 60s crooner, that transformed into sort of that heavy metal aesthetic if you take the technical boundaries of that singing to its extent. But you can see, like, right, I'm trying to find this moment, I think it's around here, where he really pulls the sound back but doesn't lose any of that actual color in the sound. And you have to listen a little bit through that older recording to kind of to see what's happening. But I think you'll see what I mean. Again. Same timbre, nothing lost. So soft. Absolutely, Mike, you're right. And then he goes from that really sensitive, soft placement. I want to go back a little more. You know what? We have to listen to this middle section.
You in his arms, I just broke down and cried, and it looks like I'm never gonna fall in love again.
Now, while there is a lot of compression naturally on that microphone that he's using, and the recording itself doesn't do a lot of justice to the dynamic range, what he is doing here is such an expert virtuosic technique. And we don't have singers who bring that much variation to what they do. Now, there are obviously exceptions, but it seems like the tradition of this kind of singing in popular music, which this is for the time, has kind of branched into more polarized techniques, which is understandable. People want to max out the capabilities of what they're doing in one direction or another. But similar to the video Une Vie d'Amour that we listened to yesterday or the day before, there is something to be said about approaching something at face value as a human rather than just trying to make it some kind of like polarized, maximized type of performance, you know? What up, Z Love? Good, man. This is 1967. Wait, what's the Jennifer Hudson video?
But when you felt for someone else, baby, I broke up all inside, and it looks like
Yeah, crazy, man. Thank you.
I'm
this is so intense. Like supporting this sound in this way. He's sweating. He's sweating. His face is scrunched up. This is such an impressive vocal performance, just based on how well he's sustaining the sound. It's awesome.
Please don't make me fall in love
Yeah, baby. These are part of Patreon requests, Z Love. So if you want to check out my Patreon, see the options there. You can put in a request. Since I'm not able to stream regularly right now. I got just too much going on. So we load these for like a small period during the month